Hey listeners, you know who I am, and you know what time it is. I wanted to take a moment before the show to talk about two things. First off, I want to say it was incredibly surprising how much of a response my last installment got. Some of you expressed concern and sadness over the content, and others were very supportive of what I said. I know I say it often, but I really want you to know, because some of you actually might have been new listeners. Uh, Whether you've been listening to my journey on here since it started over 3 years ago, or you just started listening today, I really appreciate the time you give me. Thank you. And the other thing I wanted to talk about before going into the show is a personal story. I know some of you don't tune in for this stuff, but I can't help talking about it. So feel free to check the description below to find the fast forward point to skip the story if you want, or just bear with me for a while. I just have to get this story off my chest. Maybe I've told it, and some of you already have heard it. I don't remember. But you see, I was rummaging through my possessions this past weekend, looking for one of my most prized personal possessions. What was this item, you might be wondering? It's a memento of her. It's a picture of me and her together, taken at a photo booth of a place we went to many years back. It's not the only picture I have together with her, but this one holds a very special place with me, for more than one reason, but the main reason is because it's an authentic picture from the day that I truly realized she was the love of my life. And I used to have this picture on display in my room, near my bedside, but a while back I took it down and stowed it away, because it hurt me to see it. I was in a dark place emotionally at the time, and looking at the picture somehow made me feel more sorrowful than it did bring me comfort. But recently I found myself a new hope, and found myself wanting to put it back up on the wall so that I could see it every night as I go to sleep, and so that it would be the first thing every morning when I wake up. And I did find the picture, and I put it back up on display. But that's not what this story is about. You see, I found something else next to where I had the picture, and I was reminded in a strange way of why I felt as I felt, and why I am as I am. It almost explains my situation perfectly. You see, the other item I found was a silver necklace of half a heart, painted blue, with half of a phrase written on it. I had this along with the other half of the heart, which was on another separate necklace, roughly 2 years back. And you see, the other half of the heart necklace was red, and it had the remaining letters to complete the phrase written on it. But I don't have that half of the necklace in my possession anymore, because I gave that half of the heart necklace to the love of my life not long after I got it. And when I did, I said to her simply, "Whatever you do, please don't throw this away." I didn't say why I asked her not to, and in actuality she probably thought nothing of the gesture. But to me, that was my way of saying, you have half my heart, and it belongs to you. All I ask is that you don't throw it away or treat it lightly. And you know what? It's the perfect metaphor for my situation, because she really does have a sizable portion of my heart that belongs to her, whether she wants it or not. And without her, really, deep down inside, I'll never feel complete. And that makes it, or rather makes her, the most valuable person in the world to me. But to her, especially given the spell of the sorcerer. It is probably just a trinket, with perhaps some slight sentimental value. But I would not be surprised for a moment if over the course of time that has passed since I gave it to her, she no longer has it in her possession. Now this is just speculation on my part. She'll likely never tell me. But whether by negligence or intentionally at the behest of the sorcerer, I'm of the theory she has probably parted with it. And who knows where it is right now. That other half could probably be at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean by now, never to be seen by me again. And I thought I'd share this story because a lot of you always seem to ask me, what is it about my situation that leaves me so incomplete and so broken? So I figured that was as good an answer as I could give. So yeah, I thought I'd take the intro of this show to share that story. And I did. So now, let's move on with a show that has nothing to do with any of that. So, let's talk internet. Alright, so I've discussed this before. Social media. It's supposed to bring us together, connect us to people around the world. It's a place for us to share our thoughts, share our life events, or perhaps, like I'm doing right now, just have a conversation. Seems innocent enough, but like many things in life, it is never as simple and straightforward as it seems. You see, right now, in the United States of America, the discussion that has been occurring since the onset of social media in the early 2000s is finally being made front and center to the public. And this discussion centers around one key topic of discussion: the right to privacy. The social media platform under scrutiny for possibly violating that right? None other than Facebook, whose chief executive officer, Mark Zuckerberg, had to testify before the U.S. House and Senate committees over several different questions in regard to how Facebook handles the data it collects off of users. But before we get into that, perhaps I should cover the basics of what prompted all of this. You see, in case you are unaware, Facebook, like almost all social media, is a platform for which individuals voluntarily sign up to use. And while it might be a secret to most, a lot of folks tend to know that the site does sell its user data to advertisers and other companies. Now, if that's a revelation for you listening to this, I have some bad news, because a lot of social media companies also do this type of stuff, not just Facebook. Some of it is avoidable for users, and you can simply adjust your privacy settings. Some of it isn't. But you see, users might be aware that Facebook has access to their private information, but not all users are aware that apps on Facebook from other companies can bypass your settings to access the same information. When you interact with these apps, normally the app will request access to these things when you first click on it and give you the option to agree or disagree to giving that app access. But almost every time you disagree, you're essentially unable to use the app. So you kind of have to hit agree. Most people just hit agree because they figure they don't care if some card game app has access to the information. Because, you know, what the hell are they going to do with it, right? But as it turns out, sometimes really innocent apps collect a lot of information on people. And it can be a game changer for powerful people in the real world. For instance, some Facebook users were surprised to find out a survey app passed off as a personality quiz in 2015 was actually used by researchers of Cambridge University to collect user data on the person signing up to take the app's quiz, as well as the information of the people on their friends list. This information was then sold to a political consulting firm known as Cambridge Analytica, which provided services to the presidential campaigns of then Republican candidates Donald Trump and even Ted Cruz. So in essence, what seemed like a harmless Facebook app that most users probably didn't even use or give permission to access their data was able to gather their information regardless and have it be accessible to political campaigns they might or might not support. Consider these numbers, actually. Only about 300,000 people downloaded the Cambridge app to take the personality quiz, but it is estimated the app gained access to the data of about 50 million users because it could target the information of a user's friends list. That's impressive and also rather frightening when you think about it. What is equally concerning is that this isn't the first time apps have gained access to user information in order to benefit a political campaign, without all of those users approving of it. You see, in 2012, the Obama campaign and their app, Obama for America, did a similar thing, in that users could give the app access to their information as well as give it access to the information on their friends list. The friends of the users didn't have to consent to this, nor do they get a notification of this. So yeah, now the United States Congress wants to investigate whether regulation needs to be put in place on Facebook over its data handling and management of private user information because of what is being called the Cambridge Analytica scandal. What are my thoughts on all of this? Well, most listeners probably already know this, but there is one surefire way to avoid your private information on Facebook being mishandled or leaked to private companies without your consent. And that's by not using Facebook at all. Who would have thought, right? Sounds so simple. But unfortunately, the reality is that out of the estimated 280 million Americans over the age of 13, only about 67 million of them don't have a Facebook account. So about 75% of the American population over the age of 13 was potentially affected by this. So the information is already vulnerable. But then you have the whole, you could just delete your account, if you do have one, to prevent your information from future vulnerabilities. Again, also an option. But speaking as someone who does have a Facebook account for this show, as well as myself, that reminds me, a quick aside, if you haven't checked me or the show out on Facebook, you totally should. Just look up in the search bar, Real Gerald Lord, or Another Point of View on Facebook. You'll recognize it when we turn up. And feel free to send me a message if you're a fan of the show. Always enjoy hearing from you all. But yeah, back to what I was getting at. As someone with a Facebook account, I can see the appeal of the service in terms of, connecting with and keeping up with people in my life. I see the negatives of Facebook too, don't get me wrong. Just as it can connect us to people, it can also devalue the meaning of friendship. But I think the solution to things like our data being breached on Facebook and our privacy being taken for granted on social media platforms doesn't have to do with getting rid of social media from our lives altogether, but rather changing how we interact and use social media in our lives. Because at the end of the day, the pictures, the videos, and the information of users that these companies obtain, it's what you put up there. If you aren't comfortable with the world seeing it, don't post it. Be responsible and understand what you want to keep private. Because in the end, we are the gatekeepers of the information about ourselves from which the world must obtain it from. Those are my thoughts. Alright, so It's just going to be a one segment show this time. Two if you count the personal story, which did take a lot out of me. But I will try to get back to doing this on a more regular basis, especially given recent events and news going on in the world as of late. It's getting pretty crazy out there. I mean, spies getting targeted with nerve agents, the United States of America and the Russian Federation talking about actively going to war with each other. It's all very worrisome. And it's at times like this, more than ever, I think, that people could really use another point of view of things. But until next time, take care, listeners.